Welcome back to the Torchy Blame series. I'm your host for today, Cheryl Cook. Today we are asking the question, who is Jenna person's Mulicka? And I don't know if I'm saying the name right. Let's get right down into our topic. And first of all, according to Miss Person's Mulicka, according to her biography, she is a sixth-generation Floridian, a Fort Myers High School graduate with a bachelor's degrees in both government and journalism from Evangel University in Missouri and a law degree from George Washington University in Washington. Her new district office is down the hall from her great-great-great-grandfather, who served on the first Lee County Board of County Commissioners in 1887. This is actually a really good time to do a little bit of in-depth study about our Florida Constitution. This is our good friends at Ballotpedia. The current and sixth Florida Constitution was adopted on November 5, 1968. So this is from our friends at Wikipedia, and it really, we use Wikipedia as a backup source to expedite the process. What you can see, which precedes this information, let's read from the top of Wikipedia. Florida has been governed by 6 different constitutions since acceding to the United States. Before 1838, only the Spanish Constitution of 1812 was briefly enacted in Florida. Florida's first constitution as a U.S. territory was written and implemented in 1838. On March 3, 1845, Florida was granted admission into the Union as the 27th state. So we leave off at 1838, when the U.S. territory was written and implemented into the United States. And this is the 1838 convention that is also, this is where we pick up from the previous conversation. And what I found interesting is here, a handwritten copy of the 1838 Constitution, or form of government for the people of Florida. And let's follow this train of thought here. So the 1885 Florida Constitution, and keep in mind as you bounce back and forth among these constitutions in Florida, which is what happened, you're also bouncing back with political parties. And if you recall your history, there were the Whigs and there were the Democrats during the Civil War era, and it was Abraham Lincoln who basically founded, if you want to say, the Republican Party. And I'm not endorsing either party, but just be aware that this is all part of history. So the 1885 Florida Constitution, the Florida Constitution Convention in 1885 produced a constitution that reversed some of the aspects of the Reconstruction 1868 Constitution. It established a poll tax, disenfranchising many African Americans and poor whites. It also codified segregation. It established the makeup of the state government that continued until 1968. Now this is when you go back, and if you really want to be partisan and understand, or not even be partisan, if you really want to understand the politics of Florida, it's worth going back and noting what the different political parties were that were engaged in some of these activities. And you're going to be very surprised. The 1885 legislature enacted Chapter 3577, calling for a constitutional convention in order to revise the Constitution of 1868. In 1885, a general election for the selection of delegates was held throughout the state. Okay, so the new Constitution legitimized a poll tax, and this is in 1885, as a prerequisite for voting, thus effectively causing disenfranchise of blacks and many poor whites. Now keep in mind what we're talking about with this lady, this individual, Mrs. Jenna Persons Mulicka. We're going to this current de-annexation legislation that she partnered with Mr. Perry in that is as of this moment sitting in Tallahassee being debated. So we're looking at the history of sixth generation Mrs. or Ms. Persons. We're looking at her activities as an elected official, and we're going to get a little bit more into that. And we're looking at the history of Florida, because remember that her great-great-great-great-grandfather was elected in 1887 to a local office, which a county is a local office. And again, we're looking at the new Constitution legitimized a poll tax, which caused disenfranchisement of blacks and many poor whites. So we're getting into voting issues now, voting issues of the people. And so here's our current Constitution, 1968. So we've gone through the 1865 Constitution, which was not approved, the 1868 Constitution, the 1885, and now we're at the current Constitution of the state of Florida, 1968, with its revisions which are referendums, amendments that were approved by the voters. Keep in mind that we are talking about the individual, Ms. Persons, who is co-sponsoring the de-annexation or contraction amendment. They're amending the contraction issue. And just to add a little color to our discussion today, as a result, I'm reading this again from Wikipedia because it's easy to bounce back and forth. As a result of what was called the Lavender Scare of the mid-20th century, the Florida Legislative Investigative Committee, which was known as the Johns Committee, was established in 1956, and this was the result of their study. The purple pamphlet, you can pull this up online. After 9 years of work, the Johns Committee issued a report on homosexuality in Florida in 1964. The report would become known as the purple pamphlet because of its purple color. And this is the color, this is the photo. More than 2,000 books were printed at a cost of $720. The first 1,000 were sent to legislators, newspapers, and other state officials. Soon after, the pamphlet allegedly was sold as pornographic literature on the streets of New York City, allegedly. When lawmakers realized the purple pamphlet was viewed as state-sponsored pornography, they halted further publication and denied funding to the Johns Committee for the next legislative session. So this occurred in 1964, 4 years before our current Florida Constitution, which was 1968. And there's a second page to this. You can look this up on your... Before we go any further, let's just ask the questions that we need to ask and continue looking into Miss Jenna Persons, who's now married. And this is House Bill 1401. And I'm getting to a point here, maybe I'll just get right down to it because it's very concerning. We've talked about a little bit of the history of the state of Florida's Constitution. This is a bill to be entitled, we're not going to look at that so much. Let's go down a little bit. You can pull this up yourself, obviously. This is what I'm concerned about. Notwithstanding subsections 2 and 4, if more than 70% of the land in an area proposed for contraction is owned by individuals, corporations, or legal entities that are not registered electors of the state, the area may only be contracted if the owners of more than 50% of the total area of the land in the area consent to the contraction. Such consent shall be obtained by the parties proposing the contraction before the referendum to be held on the contraction. First of all, you have to really wonder about the timing of this piece of legislation. 2, notwithstanding subsection 2.4, if the area proposed for contraction does not have any registered electors on the date of the ordinance was adopted, a vote of the electors areas is not required. In addition to meeting the requirements of subsection 11, the area may only be contracted if the owners of more than 50% of the parcels of land in the area proposed for contraction consent to the contraction. So my question is, what if the owners of more than 50% of the parcels of land in the area proposed for contraction have to consent? What if that land is owned by China? China doesn't have a right to vote in the United States. What this looks like is that Ms. Persons wants to, and Mr. Perry, who we spoke of previously, they want to give governments, perhaps. What if Iran owned parcels of land, 50% of the parcels of land in the area? Why would they be allowed to vote? This is America. And what happens if the owners of the more than 50% of the parcels, and remember, that could be single parcels. It doesn't have to be one huge chunk of land. For instance, in Northport, we are a pre-platted city, so thousands and thousands and thousands of parcels or lots are owned, some of them by foreigners, people in Spain, people in Ukraine. What about if part of this property is owned by Russia and part of it owned by Ukraine? This is very concerning. And that's why I went into previously the history of the state of Florida, and we see from its origins, they wanted to be very clear. Votes belong to the people. And then you can see how different legislators or different people in power removed certain rights from certain people, certain voting rights from certain people. We know that they removed the rights through poll tax from the blacks and from poor whites. That just covers 2 demographics. There might be other people who were denied their vote, which according to the federal constitution would allow them to vote, that Florida removed from them. And now you have this individual, Mrs. Persons or Ms. Persons, along with her Senate partner, Mr. Perry, not even requiring that owners of 50% or more of the parcels of land on the area proposed for contraction. They don't even care if it's China. They don't care if it's Venezuela. What if it's Cuba? It could be anybody. This is how I'm reading this. The consent of the property owners that are required under subsection 11 shall be obtained by the parties proposing the contraction. The consent. So that means the people have to go to China. We don't, subsection 11. It doesn't specify in here. We just read it. Here's subsection 11. And this underline, it appears that this is an addition. That's how you tell that this is where this piece of legislation from the 1800s is being modified. This was what disturbed me when I first heard about this piece of legislation, and this to me is breathtaking. Is it even allowed in this country that foreign countries are allowed to tell United States citizens if they're allowed to contract or not? Let's move on from this. So we look at the university, Evangel University, that Ms. Persons went to, and I don't care about her private life. This to me isn't her private life. This is her background. This is the university overview. Our commitment to the integration of faith, learning, and life attracts students from a wide variety of Christian backgrounds. These students have a strong commitment to academics and an even stronger desire to combine their faith, Christian faith, with every aspect of their lives. And again, the question is, what are the ingredients of Ms. Persons' what is the ingredients of her background, her sixth generation Florida background, that went into her decision to enter this amendment to the contraction process during a very crucial time in our area where a contraction process is actually going on. Why is it so crucial for this individual to put forth that document that I just read to you, the frightening document that makes you realize she could be handing over the fate of the people of West Villages to China? Now, we all know who owns that property, and I think it's within my memory that that individual that owns that vast majority of property is Canadian. And just a little bit more about this university, because you can look it up yourself. Values at Evangel, we focus on preparing students to bring into the world values that will have a positive impact on a global scale. The values and objectives we encourage are an essential element of Evangel. Now, the reason I'm bringing up this university is if you look at the demographics of Fort Myers in the area when this individual's 6 generations go back, this was not necessarily a thriving community, nor was it a bucolic backwater. So all of these things we can now add to our understanding of who Jenna Persons is and why is she putting forth the legislation that she is, which is, at this point, we can say it's shocking. And let's look a little bit at Ms. Jenna Persons' campaign contributions. You can pull this up yourself. It's on the State of Florida website. And I'm just going to go, there's 4 pages of this, so I'm not going to bore you because you can look it up yourself. What we're looking for are the realtors. We're looking for, of course, political friends are not, we don't count them because they're to be expected. We're looking for political committees. Here they are. And we're just going to do the first of 4 pages of this just to bring into question some of the things that we see. Here's another realtor, real estate, political committee, and more real estate. Now, what you're going to look for in the other pages are mostly political committees. And that's going to tell you who this individual is. How much of this, here we are, Hayes Street, Protect Florida Families Fund, Tallahassee. We see these flyers coming out from these political committees currently, don't we, here in Sarasota County, because they want to do away with single member districts. And we are saying, as we have been saying, vote no to repealing single member districts. You want to keep single member districts. Let's just look at the ultimate amount. And this is our 4th page. We divided it up into pages. And you're going up to more current contributors. We see law firms, another political committee, agribusiness. We have to wonder who they are, Likes Brothers. Political committee. Here are 3 more. Here's another one, home builder, government affairs. Okay, so how much, look at all these political committees. Holy mackerel. Look at this. This gal really brought it in to the tune of $350,000. Actually, more than that, $356 and $630. So this gal went for broke. Let's see let's see who she is. So let's just get this wrapped up. This is the law firm that the young Miss Persons is a partner of, as a named partner, Strayhorn and Persons. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because Ms. Persons advertises and markets her law firm as she's doing her political work. So here she is with the glamour shot. Little black dress is what this is called. She's got her hands on her hips, like this is what's called a glamour shot. And the other kind of more mature lady, she's being left out of the picture. The picture is between these two individuals. Okay, so what we have discovered from today's episode is that this individual wants to give away voting rights of Americans to, it seems, a Canadian billionaire. I'm going by memory. I'm fairly certain that almost all of the land in West Villages that is not owned by citizens, almost all of it is owned by the Canadian billionaire. So this lady, Ms. Persons, and Mr. Perry, as we spoke of before, according to their own document that we looked at, wants to give voting rights to the Canadian billionaire. And Pat Neal, but he only owns a tiny little bit of land over there. So we conclude today's episode, and we now found out who Ms. Persons is. And we also gave a little history lesson. You really should study the history of Florida. It's truly fascinating. And thank you again for joining us.